All right, guys, I am back with David Heineman. This is such an awesome opportunity. David and I sat back together in 2023. Oh my gosh, 3 years ago. David, for those that do not know you, would you please introduce yourself? You're so good at it. And I would just, yeah, I'd love to hear it again.
Of course. My name's David. I run and operate Stay Safe Martial Arts, which now is an actual in-person training facility, as well as kind of the name behind all my online social media. The mindset behind our brand is preparing people for life's worst case scenarios. So it's a combination of pretty much learning how to fight, staying physically active, learning medical training, just all the skills you need to be able to protect yourself in a moment's notice against a violent attack of any sort. Obviously, the gym. I actually don't run as much self defense as people probably think I do outside of the gym. I kind of just run seminars on a per request basis because primarily we are a fight gym. So I do have a lot of active fighters, but I have a first degree black belt in jiu jitsu. I've been doing boxing, Thai boxing for over 15 years now. I've wrestled. I've done a lot of different self defense, both teaching and training. And then, yeah, our gym is filled with hobbyists, law enforcement, first responders, fighters, you name it. We're training on a regular basis. So that's kind of been my focus the past couple years now is running the gym, and then still just producing social media as much as we can in between all that.
Oh my gosh, that's right. You didn't have the gym when we first recorded. At that point, you were
No, we were in the
traveling.
basement.
Yeah, you were thinking
I
of,
was traveling, but I
yeah.
was teaching in the basement.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Well, how exciting. Yeah, gym ownership, I cannot imagine. I cannot imagine having to be a
Yeah,
businessman and then on top of that an instructor and then everything else you do is social media.
yeah.
That is so
Yeah,
much.
it
And now
it
you're
gets
a
it gets a
father.
little hectic. I am, yeah,
Yes,
so that adds a whole
congratulations.
'nother layer of thank you, so yeah, so it's busy, 2 jobs, running the gym, doing social media, being a dad, husband, it adds up, so I have to kind of balance the best that we can with it, so
Absolutely. Well, with all that said, thank you so much for coming back on and being so patient
of
with the
course.
technical difficulties this morning. But it's been so nice to catch up. And I told you I listened back to season one when you came on in 2023. If you haven't listened to that, there's a chance we won't quite dive as deeply into, David's past with martial arts as much just because we might jump into topics. My point is, if you have the time to go back and listen to season one and then jump back here to this episode, I highly recommend it. It really is such a great episode, and it will give this full picture of David's journey and how he got started in helping specifically women. Of course, you're now working with fighters, and I'm sure you're helping everyone from civilians to law enforcement to professional fighters. So that's so incredible. But it really was a good kind of preparatory episode, at least for me as a host. And for someone listening, I think it's just so, so worth it to get that full picture. So I'm also going to link it in the show notes below if you don't want to have to scroll all the way back to season one, because it is quite a ways. So yeah, oh my goodness. How exciting. I don't even know where I want to start. So, another thing that you've done since we recorded is you've started working with the Shivworks Collective. And anyone who listens to this podcast regularly knows that I'm a big fan. I'm actually doing my fourth ECQC this coming Friday, which is kind of wild.
Nice,
Yeah,
nice.
thank you. I'm gonna need therapy at some point, just like I,
They're fun.
I even, oh my God, they're
I
so
was actually
fun.
I was actually supposed to I have to text Brian, I was supposed to do the one at the end of the month in Wisconsin because it's only a few hours
Yeah.
from me. And I had it on my calendar to do so, but I have to be out of my current gym spot the following weekend. So I
Oh
kind
my
of was like,
goodness.
I need to make sure everything is good to go. And so I was like, I'll just have to skip on that for this year, and maybe I can jump in one later in the year. But yeah, I
Yes.
got to get the gym situated first.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're moving to a larger space or just a different space?
Different
Different
space.
space.
Mat space will be the same, more or less.
Okay.
However, I have a second room. So we'll technically at the new spot we'll have a striking room and a grappling
Oh,
room. The grappling room will be
fantastic.
fully padded. Every inch of the walls, every inch of the floor will be padded.
Wow.
And then we have like a dance room that we will convert into the striking room, though it most likely won't be used actively. It'll kind of be like we'll hang the bags in there, but most of the training is still done in the padded room. My lease just ended up coming up at the end of or beginning of June, and then we were kind of just running into some uh, issues with the building,
Yeah.
not with the landlord, but kind of the county was hammering us on a few things. And
Yeah.
that kind of was like, all right, well, I'm going to start looking. So we found a sports complex that's 5 minutes from where I live, which is nice. So I'll
Yeah.
be even closer to home. brand new buildings, up to date, and I know the guy actually from firearm training, which was a small world. I didn't realize he owned the building. And he's like, no, he's like, I want somebody to, I want somebody to use the upstairs. So, like kids will be playing volleyball, soccer, whatnot on the main floor,
Yeah.
and then we'll be upstairs fighting. So it'll be good exposure for us. So I think this is a
Yeah.
better opportunity for us to grow, and I don't have to deal with anything with the building. That's all taken care
Gosh.
of. So for me, it's less of a hassle. So it's a smarter decision for us to kind of move over there. And we're slowly starting to beat up the walls in this building pretty good right now. So it's like I kind of need to find something with a little bit sturdier of a building that can kind of handle where we're going. So no, we're excited.
Absolutely.
It's moving's always a pain, but we're
Sure.
excited.
I'm excited for you. I hope that you have a lot of help from the gym and are recruiting
Oh,
your
I pushed it this time. I
Okay, good.
pushed it this time. Last time everyone said they're gonna help me, and then also it was me and one other person. I'm
No.
like, you all don't have a choice. So
Yes.
I've planned it with a few people. We're having class, but the class is moving our pads over to the new spot. So I'm like, I know everyone's going to show up to class. Guess what? People were moving.
Yes.
So we've got it
That
figured
is
out this time
so
around.
funny. That's what I would want to do in that
Yeah.
situation. Yeah, man, I
Yeah.
can't imagine having to balance all those things. For anyone listening who maybe hasn't like gone out and instructed or started a path of your own aside from, maybe working for someone else, having to be a business person on top of being an instructor or being a specialist in something, uh not all of us went to business school and like learned how to like run certain things. So like there's just the learning curve is so steep sometimes, at least on my side, and I have a studio in my home. Like I don't even have a building. So like I cannot imagine. So it's incredible.
It hasn't been bad. I think I did it right by building it up as much as we did in the house before we moved because
Nice.
people were telling me, I mean, we were at the house for almost 2.5 years before I moved out of the house.
Yeah.
Um, and I would have days where we'd have 10 people and they're like, yo, you need to open up a gym. I'm like, there's 10 people here. I said, this is a good day right now. I said,
Right.
on a bad day, there's three. But then it got to the point where my average class size in my basement was 20 people.
Mhm.
And I was like, okay, we need to start finding a new, and like on good days, we were pushing close to 30. And I'm
Right.
like, we got to move. And so that was like the moment where I'm like, I physically can't house people anymore. I had enough cash flow at that point to where I'm like, okay, we can now invest in the mats and the pads and do what we need to do. Um, but then I think people are also under the impression that once you open up, like, okay, you had all this traction here. So when you go and open up a gym space and you publicize it, because I wasn't public, like it was at the house, it was kind of under the radar, it was invite only. So either somebody had to request you or you had to reach out to me directly. And I pretty much
Okay.
had to prove who trained with us. And which, again, you're coming to my house, so I'm going to be extra careful. But I think people are under the impression like, oh, you're going to open a spa and you're going to just blow up. And I'm like, well, that's not how gyms work. You don't
Right.
just magically start sprouting. So it took, I mean, like, fortunately, we had good deals and everything. So, like, we were in the green pretty much the first month, and we've been in the green pretty much every month since. So I've been grateful for that. How much of the green depends on how many people we have that month,
Right.
and how many are signing up. So it kind of took us a little bit. We opened up in our first like official opening was like July of 2024. So like right in the middle of the summer, was like, okay, let's start a kids program September. And I'm like, this was a terrible idea. And we had like no kids. So I shut that down and waited until January. So I ran like the first chunk of, or actually it might have been in the fall, but I waited months before I finally started a kids program. And that started kind of picking up a little bit more. But I don't run a ton of classes. Like I see other gyms are like, oh, you should run classes every single day. And it's like, listen, I run 2 kids classes and each of those kids classes has 20 plus kids in it because I only offer 2 days. So everybody comes. My adult
Right.
classes, I offer 3 jujitsu a week. They're packed because I only offer 3 a week. And I've been to places that have 5 classes a week and there's 6 people. So it's like I'd rather shorten the amount of training days offered and you get more people that come to those training days. And I'm like, okay, now that we're starting to grow, I've got some other instructors that are taking over some things so I can open up the door for more classes. We got our fight team now in there a couple days a week where it's only pro and amateur fighters that are actually training. That's starting to grow a little bit more. So like once we've started getting the bodies and I started getting people that I trusted that could actually run their program, we've started to open up the door. But I was like, I'm not doing this full time. I don't need to run 100. I'm like, and I'm there every single day. So like, I'm still there 5 days a week,
Right.
but that's more than enough training. I'm like, when I was coming up, like 3 days was fine. If you train 2, 3 days a week, like that's what most people can deal with. That's fine. And I'm not a competition school, so I'm not
Right.
pushing competition. Yes, I have people that fight, but they get training elsewhere as well. So it works out in that sense. But yeah,
Yeah.
it was definitely a learning curve in the growth area, which is
Mhm.
why this move now makes sense.
Yes.
Because I had a good core group. We spent the last 2 years really hammering down a curriculum and figuring out how we're teaching, how we're running. I've started to get a lot of color in the room now, so it's not just a bunch of white belts anymore. And so
Nice.
now we're at a good spot moving into a new location where it's okay. Now we can grow. Now I
Mhm.
can start really pushing because we're going to have a lot of eyes on us. But now I also have a good foundation. So we'll have people that can help out one another more. I have a better idea of what I'm teaching and how I'm teaching it. And it kind of just flows a little bit like that. So yeah, I'm excited for this next chapter.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's definitely a learning curve. I think we did it the right way though.
Absolutely. It sounds like there's so much alignment between not only just scaling the amount of people you have, the advanced belts you have, but also becoming a father and like maybe not wanting people to come to your home and just all of this.
Well, and that's and that's where it was. Is like the
Yeah.
moment we got pregnant, like the decision came. It's like everyone, like we knew, like okay, people need to get out of the house. And then the question, like the only option was like, okay, I either stop teaching and we're just done, or I open up a gym. I said that's really the only two options that we have because there
Right.
weren't any other gyms around us that people would go to. The cost was a lot more for those gyms, and people were training with me, and they
Right.
didn't want to go elsewhere, and I still wanted to train.
Right.
So I was like, it's either we shut it down or we open up a spot.
Right.
And we decided on opening up a spot. So like now that he's here, I mean, he's with me at the gym all the time. He was there with me this morning. Um, like now I'm trying to kind of pull back a little bit, which again, being closer to home helps out. Having other
Yes.
instructors jump in helps out, but it takes time to get people at that point to where it's like, okay, hey, I'm going to teach technique and then I'm going to leave for rounds. You guys close up tonight. Okay, cool. So I
Right.
can get home a couple hours early. So
Ah,
like that's,
incredible.
I've gotten to the point where like I can do that and that's nice. And then, yeah, again, I can still get my training in when I need to, but I'm not competing. I'm not doing anything like that. So like
Yeah.
whatever little training I get, I just make the most of it for what we're there. And again, I'm still actively training every day. So I'm
Yes.
good.
Absolutely. Ooh, I'd love
I'm not trying to be a world champ. So it's
right.
just, I just enjoy doing it.
No, gosh, what you're doing is yeah. Yes, we'll get into that through well, actually, I'll ask you now. When you came on season 1, we talked about how your initial interest in helping women and just educating people who didn't see the full spectrum of self-defense, everything from just being aware at a bar all the way to like if you have to get into a hands-on kind of self-defense scenario. Your passion started with actually, could you actually tell this story? I listened to season 1 and I listened to the, kind of the trajectory of you wanting to becoming impassioned by helping women because of a situation you had where you were kind of, like, looked at by a woman a certain way and you're like, "Ooh, I don't like that. I wanna be part of the solution." But the way you tell it is so eloquent. Would you kind of give the listeners a look
Yeah, of
back?
course.
Okay, thank you.
So yeah, I mean, I love, like you said, I thoroughly enjoy teaching self defense, and I work with anyone, anyone
Right.
that wants to learn. But my passion has always been working with women and women's self defense, not empowering women, and we can talk about that later. But I've kind of really gone away from the empowerment
Totally fair.
trend.
Yeah.
But yeah, when I was in high school, I was asked to be a part of a women's self defense class, and this was before I was teaching them. I was just a person in the bug suit at the time. So for those that aren't familiar, it's a full head to toe suit that's padded. You walk super slow because you can't bend anything, and it's nice because it allows the women to hit really hard, so they can kind of realize like, oh, I can actually put some pressure on the person. Looking back, I don't think the bug suit is really an effective method for people learning how to protect themselves because I'm moving in slow motion and I can't do anything. But
Right.
again, I digress. But point being is during that particular class, I walked into the room. There was myself and one other instructor. We were rotating rooms. I walked into the room, and as I walked in, a woman broke down because something about my demeanor triggered her for something. And she kind of just broke down. So they had me step out and had the other instructor or the other bug suit come in, and he worked for that portion of the class. And then, I just worked with the other ladies. And again, I was in high school, didn't really think much of it at the time, but it planted that seed so that when I got to college and I started hearing about stuff happening and seeing stuff happening and knowing people that stuff had happened to, that seed had now really sprouted. And then that's where, when I was in college, that's where the whole I guess, passion for wanting to work with women and women's self defense in general really kind of came to fruition. And then just spending time working with different survivors, hearing their stories, getting involved with the legal side of things, and talking to the people that are responsible to that, talking to counselors and therapists to understand that side of things, allowed me to kind of get a full picture so that when I went on tour and started working with universities, I had a good full understanding of like, here's what happens, here's the legal process, here's the emotional process, here's the medical process, here's the self-defense process, like here's all the different things that it involves or what you need to do or what you should do. Um, but it all started with that one moment in high school that, again, I didn't really think much of it at the time, but that's definitely where the trajectory started from.
Absolutely. Thank you for retelling that. I appreciate that.
Of
And
course.
I still admire you so much for doing something about that. And I love that you've created a career out of it. And I'd love to know, compared to our conversation back in 2023, you know, you were working with sororities, campus, of course, individual women and what
Hmm.
sounds like seminars. How has
Hmm.
that kind of how has that changed or adjusted to what you're doing now? You said you're working with professional fighters. How has that evolved?
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I don't have like a scheduled self-defense class. But
Right.
even when I was teaching at the house, I was running a women's self-defense class like every other month. And I would just do like a 2 to 2.5 hour session. And when I first started, and this is just kind of where I've involved as an instructor. I used to, 2 hour session, we'd go over a million different things. And then as I started, and I'll give credit to Brian, I've gotten really close to Craig and Brian. They've taken me under their wing a good bit. I've helped them with social media stuff. They've helped me with some of the instruction stuff and just kind of like how to categorize and plan things out. And so now I've kind of taken my seminars and they're still 2 to 2.5 hours just for like something at my gym. But they're hyper focused on something. So we'll spend 2.5 hours just working on how to get back to your feet
Mm,
or how to fight off a wall or how to deal with different grabs. But it's like hyper focus on something where, again, it's not, you're not going to learn a ton, but it gives you an idea. And the goal is that it encourages you to now come in and start training full time, which I've got a lot of ladies that have done so as a result. So I run those. I was running those out of the house every other month, and then I've been running those out of the gym every other month. And I'm still getting like 20 plus women that come to those groups. And our town has had a lot of instances over the past couple of years where men have tried picking up 13,
mm,
14-year-old girls outside of a Target or something, and people like post about it. And so I'll immediately comment and say, hey, let's run a group. Whoever was included, no charge for you. Just come in and, let's get something going. And
mm.
like that'll blow up right away. So I'll take that as an opportunity to be like, hey, let's run something now. So I still run those classes a lot. This year, once we move, I know I'm going to run one pretty quickly after we get settled. And then I do want to start doing some mixed gender classes. I also want to start doing some father son classes. So I want to kind of start expanding a little bit. To me, it's not so much about teaching the self defense at that point for the men, but kind of opening their eyes to some of the problems that you ladies have to deal with.
Right.
But I'd rather attack it at the youth level where they have time to think about it and develop and grow compared to like just working with adult males who aren't really going to change in that perspective as much.
Yes.
Obviously, the self defense is still important, but I have an underlying message that I'm also trying to kind of
Mhm.
slip into that training as well.
Absolutely,
So
and that's okay. So I love that about your teaching methodology because the empowerment aspect is a trap, right? Giving someone this feeling of having more preparedness than they really have just from a single class, maybe hitting someone in what are those suits called again?
the bug suit.
Bug suit.
At
Oh,
least that's how we all bug suit. Yeah,
that
bug
makes
suit. Like
sense.
it's
That
just a
makes
big
sense.
pulley set suit. But
Yeah,
yeah,
makes
in
total
hindsight,
sense.
again, but in hindsight, when you look back, you're
Yeah.
like, it doesn't do much.
Sure, and, like, I think that's a classic example of, there's a scene in a movie called How to Be Single, where, these 2 female actresses go to, like, a self-defense class, and all they're doing is just hitting this guy in a bug suit with, like, these sticks, right? And
Sticks,
they
yeah.
leave and they're like, "Wow, like, I feel empowered," you know? But that really would've done nothing for them, but there's an aspect of exposure that these classes give you um when you're with an instructor who knows how to like properly articulate that this isn't everything, this is just a taste, hoping to kind of expose you and encourage you to
Yeah.
come back. I'd love to hear more about what you think of kind of the use of empowerment as a
Yeah, and I don't know if I ever really threw it around, but I never really minded the term,
okay.
or I didn't think much of the term.
Mhm.
And I think now the past couple of years I've really like purposely have started my class saying like this is not an empowerment class. You're not going to walk out of here
Mm.
thinking you can take on the world. You're going to walk out of here thinking I need to train more. Like that's my message. Like you should walk out of here feeling vulnerable. And if you feel vulnerable, then I've done my job. And I've exposed that this is what violence looks like. This is what violence feels like. This is how quickly violence can happen. not that I'm having you walk out of the class feeling like you are unsafe or unprepared, but it
Mhm.
should give you a sense of like, man, I really do need to, like, it should almost encourage you to be like, I need to actually step up and go take another class or do more of these self-defense classes, because some people just want to do self-defense classes. They don't want to train on a regular basis. So like, hey, we'll come back. And I do. I have a lot of repeat women that come to all the classes, but they won't train outside of that,
Mm.
which is fine, but at least they're still
Right.
coming. Um,
Yes.
and I have fun in the classes. I make, we make each other laugh. I keep it very light, but then I do kind of pull in some reality checks very randomly that kind of bring us back down to earth a little bit with stories. And it's
Yeah.
stories of women that I've worked with
Yeah.
and sharing their stories and be like, okay, well, let's all laugh and have fun. But, the 10 seconds that I'm having you wail on this pad as hard as you possibly can, that 10 seconds is the difference between me dragging you into a van or not.
Right.
And that kind of gives people like a reality check, like, yeah, you're right. And then you'll see a difference when we're like, all right, let's run it again. And now you kind of see the people getting a little bit more emotional because now I've kind of put something in their head, but I'm like, those are stories I've worked with. Those are women that I've
Mm.
worked with who had seconds to respond and they got dragged into vans.
Right.
And so giving people that reality check or sharing what's been going on in our town and kind of, especially when they have the daughters in there, I'll target some of the daughters and ask them questions or pry some information from them to kind of not only show them how easy it is, but to show the parents this is how easy it is for me to just get information from your kid. And I'm a stranger, even though I'm running the class, I'm still a stranger. And your
Right.
kid just offered up all this information.
Right.
So it's kind of like good exposure to be like, no, my kid would never do that. I'm like, well, they just told
Yes.
me everything about him.
Right.
And so just some of that exposure is good, but
Mm.
that comes from seeing the stuff online, talking to people like you and other instructors and trainers out there who are dealing with this stuff on a real world basis,
Mhm.
and putting all that together and presenting it in a package that tells people like, you can do it, you absolutely can do it, but I'm showing you like this is how you have to, this is the steps that you need to get there. This isn't a one-time 2-hour class and I'm good.
Right. It's not instilling fear or fear mongering. It's intentional use of like scenario, implementation
Exactly.
into what they're learning. I love that. I think that's great. I'd love to know how you balance the like competition aspect of jujitsu all the way up to self-defense. And the reason I'm curious about this is I recently have started going to jujitsu more consistently. That doesn't mean totally consistently. Like some weeks I'm
I've noticed that.
gone.
I've
Oh my
noticed
god,
that. I've
yeah.
noticed that.
I've been posting about it. It's kind of like when you go for a run, it's like everybody
I
needs
mean,
to know
if
that
you
it's
don't
exercise.
train, I was gonna say you didn't train if you didn't tell us
I
about it.
know, exactly, that's what I'm saying. I
So
also just love my gym, and I want them to get more attention, but, there are some classes where, um for example, okay, I'm just gonna put myself on the spot. We did this drill where, it's no-gi competitive technique drill, so, like, it
mhm,
made sense in this context where, like, if someone is backing away, you kind of and you're already on the ground kind of scooting. I'm trying to use words that, like, people can maybe visualize and understand, but to follow them, like you're following them.
right,
And I didn't want to do that. And it took me everything to be like, oh, okay. Cause I want to stand up, I want to get back on my feet. I want to do a
right.
tactical stand up. And my instructor was like, Sophia, get back down. You're supposed to follow. And I was like, oh, okay. And then we started talking about points and things. And my instructor, what I really appreciate about him is he does apply things to self-defense and he's very curious about that and really tries to help people, especially who aren't interested in jujitsu competition, even though you have to do that to, jump ranks. But he tries to help apply that outward. But yeah, as an instructor, how do you kind of tailor classes and find that balance?
Yeah, it's so fortunately, I run it in the sense that like right now I've got two people in fight camp. I got
Okay.
one guy that has an MMA fight next week, and then I got a girl who just got sponsored for the TBAs in June. So she starts her
Incredible.
fight camp here soon, which is striking. That's not grappling, but it's striking. But
Uh-huh.
the my guy Luis, it's MMA, so it's obviously grappling. But I have a philosophy that if one person's in fight camp, everyone's in fight camp. The whole gym's gonna deal with it. If I'm making this kid go through hell, you're all going through hell with them. And so fortunately, like I have a good group where everyone, like, I don't even have to say anything. Nobody will let each other slack. My fighters won't let anyone else slack. Like everyone picks up the pace and picks up the tempo. So we do a lot of drilling. Like in general, my jujitsu class is structured. It's like it's an hour and a half class. Um, I do technique for like 15, 20 minutes tops. And a lot of times we just jump right into it. Like you'll get warm up doing the technique. So like we're gonna if I do warm ups, it's like stand up. But otherwise, right into technique, 15, 20 minutes, 25 tops, and then we do rounds. And sometimes I'll switch it up and we'll do like half the rounds of positional sparring. So like very strict rule sets, very short times, a lot of like just high energy rounds. And then I'll open it up to regular rounds and you can start and do whatever you want from there. But I found that my guys learn better by just like letting them play through stuff, giving them specific rule sets, and we kind of work from there. So that allows me to work with everybody because I don't run a competition gym. If somebody says I want to compete, I will help you get ready for the competition. I know what it takes. I will help you get ready for the competition, but I don't promote my gym as a competition gym because that's a completely different atmosphere. And I've trained at those gyms. I don't want that type of gym. But again, if people want to fight, we're there. And as I always tell people, because they'll get worried, like, oh, we'll get the fighters their training. I'm like, trust me, the fighters are getting their training because if they're not training during this class, they're in the afternoons, they're in the mornings. Like they are getting covered. Don't worry about the fighters. They will train where they need to train.
Mhm.
Um, the one thing that I do though for any of my techniques, unless we're doing like leg locks or something, because I'll never use that in the streets, but anytime I'm teaching techniques, especially if I have cops in the room, I'll always say, okay, blah, blah, blah. Here's how we hit a triangle choke. Now, for my officers, here's what I would do instead. Or someone that wants to learn how to protect themselves, here's the micro adjustments I'll make instead. Or if you're trying to access a weapon, here's what I would do instead. Or here's why I like this position for those that do have weapons. So I'm always constantly throwing in little tidbits so people who know that realm of things are like, got it. Um, and then I do cop rounds with all my cops. I don't give them an option. I don't care what they do when they roll with anybody else, but when they roll with me, their only job is to be on top and that's it. They start
Wonderful.
on bottom, and their only job is to be on top. And if they're taking too long, I start smacking them, just to give them that
Yeah.
reality check of like. I don't learn the sport, have
Mhm.
fun with the sport, have fun with triangle chokes. But every single cop that's there training is training because they want to be a better police officer. You don't need triangle chokes as a cop. So I'm like,
Right.
you need to get on top, and you need to be able to hold me down. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna do the same thing too. And then every once in a while, I'll draw, you know, a training weapon or something and to start going to town on them just to again kind of wake them up a little bit of like remember why you're here. And so if I also know that somebody's there, like my mom trains with me, she's there mostly for self-defense. I've
That's
got a lot of other women
awesome.
that train there. So like people
How
that I know are
cool.
there for self-defense, like I'll do stuff like that when I
Yeah.
roll with them because I'm like, you don't need to know the sports stuff.
Yeah.
Like learn it, practice it, but when you're with me, I'm gonna push you as if this is a street fight because I know that's
Mm.
what you're here for. And I have to just kind of remind people like remember what your goal is when you're training here, that if you're a cop, like, this is great. Have fun in this. But at the end of the day, you need to be on top. You need to stay on top. And fortunately, like 40, and I just posted about this the other day, like 40% of my students are cops. I have a ton of police officers
Really?
that train with us,
Oh
which is
my
really cool. And we kind
goodness.
of like took a step, like on any given night, I've got like 8 to 10 cops in there.
Oh, that's so
Um,
cool.
and they're there almost every single class, which is nice. So it's a
Yes.
good group. But yeah, that's how I've kind of had to balance it a little bit where I'll just adjust. Or like MMA fighters, I'm like, we're not playing jujitsu, we're getting up. So here's what I want you to do. Here's a perfect opportunity for you to throw a strike, or here's a perfect opportunity for you to adjust your positioning or work in a frame. But I wouldn't go for this in an MMA fight. Too risky, So I'll kind
Yes.
of just get, but that's my job. If I know what you're here for, I'm going to give you a little adjustment. And then the people that aren't here for that, goes over their head. They don't care. Like they know what
Absolutely.
they're training for. That's what they focus on. But that's my job to know that
Yes.
and then just present the material in that way, which is also why I don't like following the belt promotions and making sure like, oh, can you show me 20 different arms? Like, no,
Right.
show me. I'll feel it out in you when we roll, and I'll be able to tell where you're at.
Right. Absolutely. No, that's
So,
incredible. I love that. Yeah, you said something in season 1. You talked about the difference between, people who practice jujitsu strictly and those who throw in striking to like understand that there's a little bit more to an actual street fight. And so I just wanted to talk about that difference. I think that it has deterred people in the past, maybe even just been a kind of simple excuse to say, I'm not going to go to jujitsu because that's not applicable. And it's like, well, there are people like you out there who throw in more context. And of course, we have ShivWorks, which, oh gosh,
mhm.
I'm so excited to hear about your experience. I almost wanted to just selfishly pivot to that. When
We
did
can
you take
pivot.
your first class with them?
I took my first. I've done multiple EWO classes. I've only done one ECQC, but the EWO, that's fine. The EWO class, the first one I did was in Ohio.
Grab
It
that.
might have been like right after our podcast.
Oh,
Like it was around
nice.
23, 24.
Yeah.
I did the EWO course. So somewhere around that era. And I did that out at Aaron Genetti's gym. And so that was my first experience with it. I dragged my dad to it because he's
Fantastic.
never fought, but he and I both got our concealed carries. And I said, okay, you're going to learn what it feels like in these situations. And I forced him. I didn't tell him what the class was. I signed him up. I said, we're doing a self-defense class.
Mhm.
It has to do with firearms, even though it didn't. And I said, you're going for this. And that was a fun experience for me.
Of
Um,
course, yeah.
but maybe not so much for him. But that
Sure.
was my first exposure. And then I did it again over there. And then I've hosted them now 2 years in a row. And we've had great turnout. So we've just kind of made our gym kind of like which has been nice because they've been wanting to come back to Illinois, but it's hard finding gyms that will bring them in. And I'm like,
Right.
I own one. I
Yes.
can train with whoever I want. The
Right.
benefit of owning a gym, whoever I
Yes.
want to train with. Just and then everyone else gets to pay for them to come out, so it works. Um, so we've had them for 2 years. We'll have them again next January, February, around there. And then I've only done the one ECQC.
Yeah.
And I did that in Ohio as well. That one I definitely want to do more of. But they're awesome classes. I have had an absolute blast with them every single time I do them.
I'm so glad to hear that. No, they absolutely are. I can't sing their praises enough. At this point, probably sound like a groupie, but I don't give a shit. That's one of the reasons I started.
We all are.
Right, right. This is one of the reasons I started bringing guest speakers on. Craig Douglas was my first guest speaker, and like it was such an eye opener. And yeah, it at that point, their social media wasn't too big. Like now, Brian's running it, and it's freaking incredible, and the presence is great.
It is. It's funny because like they have tons to teach me. But we share a ton of ideas. Like I'm
Yeah.
messaging Brian constantly.
Yes.
Because either we're spitballing ideas on stuff or he's picking my brain with social media, or like he
Absolutely.
and I have plans for social media. We just never follow through on them.
It's
Um,
hard.
and then like him and Craig have like they got me to come out to the combative summit last year,
Good.
and I got invited to teach this year, but I got to see if I can make that work or not. But like they threw my
Incredible.
name out there, and so like they've been putting my name out a little bit more because I'm helping them as much as whenever they're around me, if I can jump in and help out, or just go train. Because the weapon stuff I'm still learning, but I know how to fight. I'm a nerd with fighting. I know how to fight. They understand the fighting aspect and know that I can fight, but they
Right.
also know that I'm there to become a better instructor. I'm building my own program. So again, I spent a lot of time just sitting down with Brian and understanding the behind ShivWorks and the layout of ShivWorks and why it's planned and said certain ways. And so that's helped me with my teaching. So
Mm,
they're just one of those guys that like they're not selfish. They
yeah.
want you to become just as big as they are, and you just have to be open minded to what they have to say and understand their viewpoints with things, and then compare and contrast and talk with them and have those conversations with them, both from a instructor point of view but also from a trainer point of view, and pick their brain about situations. Or um I know you want to talk about like my experiences. I remember like one of the ECQC that was like the 2-on-1
Mhm.
um situation. I was doing a really nice job keeping the person away from me, like just through conversation. I mean, like our conversation went on for like 3 minutes before he finally swung a punch. And then when we were fighting, like I'm a striker and I had no problem keeping him at bay. And in my head, I'm like, I could do this all day. Like I'm fine. I'm content. I'm keeping him at bay. I could grapple with him if I need to. Like I didn't feel at no point did I feel the need to draw my firearm in that situation because I was confident in my fight skills.
Right.
And that's something I always try to tell people when I go to those classes. Like the better fighter you are, the less you need to resort to everything else. So like
Right.
train first, carry everything else second. But then I had to put in my head on like, well, I'm here for the weapons. Like that's what I'm here for.
Right.
And I pretty much just said screw it, and I just drew my firearm. And it wasn't the best time to draw, but I'm like,
Mm.
that's why I'm here.
Right.
Like let's just draw it. And we ended up. I got one shot off on his leg. He grabbed the firearm in my hand. We fought over it. I started beating him with the slide on the firearm a little bit,
Nice.
re-racked it, got my distance, and got a couple more shots on target, and was able to break free. But I was like, that's what I was here for. Like that
Sure.
little moment in time was like, that's
Yes.
what I'm here for. But I even said afterwards, because it was either Brian or Craig that was pretty much like, the fuck are you doing?
Right.
Like, why would you draw on that? And I'm like, that's why I'm here. I said, I didn't
Sure.
feel like I needed to draw it, but I'm like, you guys are telling us to test things, to try things, to kind of pull ourselves out of our shells a little bit.
Yeah.
So I said, screw it. And I said, I'm just going to go for it. So like that was a cool experience for me to kind of just like put myself in a vulnerable spot, know that it was a bad spot, and then work out of it and be like, all right,
Absolutely.
I can figure it out.
Absolutely. And those debriefs after, man, like you
Oh,
go
they're
into
huge.
detail. They make you kind of recite what you did and why you did it.
Especially on the ECQC.
Absolutely. This episode of She Shield is brought to you by Right to Bear. You've probably heard me say that self-defense is more than simply carrying a firearm. It's awareness, avoidance, and preparation for anything that is to come your way. And that's why I'm partnering with Right to Bear. They stand by defenders like you and me. You'll receive benefits like expert witness support, psychological care, gun replacement, and even protection for other lawful self-defense tools like pepper spray, knives, and even your hands and feet if you have to use them in a struggle. What sets Right to Bear apart is that they are dedicated to education and immediate legal response. In case you do ever have to protect yourself, you have access to a 24/7 attorney-answered emergency hotline so that you are never alone. What I love most, though, has to be the personal connection that Right to Bear will have with you as a member. For example, Frank, the president of Right to Bear, will give you a personal phone call when he hears about a claim being filed. That level of care in the industry is extremely rare. If you carry, train, and believe in thinking ahead to protect yourself and your family, consider getting a membership with Right to Bear. If you use my code FIT4FIA10, you will get 10% off your membership, and the link to access this and to learn more is located in the show notes of this episode, which are the notes below the title. Protecting yourself and your family should not leave you defenseless afterwards. Stay safe and stay vigilant with Right to Bear. Absolutely. I'd love to know, when we first recorded, you talked about your firearms journey, and I think you were getting into more like serious concealed carry training, and then you were looking at going to ECQC. So, how has your firearms training evolved in this time? And like, how has it had a place in your life, especially now being a father?
Yeah, I mean, I wish I had started sooner.
Okay.
Um, but again, like I think at the time I had just applied for my stuff. Like I didn't get my firearm much after, or I had just gotten it. Like whenever you
Yeah.
and I first did an interview, it was like right at the start of it. Um, so fortunately, we found a guy here who is not only a cop, he's the one that did our concealed carry class with us. So we were able to
Nice.
get, nothing against firearm instructors at ranges, but they, in my opinion, don't always give you the best information
Hell
because
no.
they don't have that real world experience. And you're lucky
Right.
if you get like a veteran or someone that's been in some things, but for the
Mhm.
most part, no. And this guy is a part-time cop, but he's also like one of the top instructors in Illinois
Incredible.
for firearms, and he trains a ton. And biggest nerd, he's an IT guy, like you would never guess. And then this
Nice.
dude can just shoot the head off a Q-tip anywhere.
Incredible.
And so there's a private range up the road from us that we train at with him. And so when my dad and I were first learning, we were going there with him, and we would spend a few hours with him just going over specific, not even like drawing from the holster yet, just working on our grip, working
Uh-huh.
on our trigger placement, working on the difference of our shooting closer, and then as we get farther out, how we have to change up the tempo and everything a little bit. And then it got to the point where I was going to go do the ECQC. So he worked with me on drawing from the hip and stuff just to kind of get comfortable with that before I went to ECQC. And then I went there and worked with Craig, and they gave me a whole nother bunch of stuff to figure out. And so finally, I'm at a point where my shots are good. I'm confident in my shots. I still have plenty to work on. Um, farther out, it's definitely an area that I struggle with. Like that 0 to 5 foot range all day long.
Right.
I'm comfortable, not just like the shooting, but like fighting over it. Like
Yes.
I'm very confident in my ability, which I think is not what a lot of gun owners focus on.
Right.
But that's where I'm very strong with. And so everything else is still work in progress. But
Sure.
I've invested in the training. I could probably dry fire a lot more than I do now, but we are members at the private range, which allows me to train and shoot however I want, and it's just me in there. So I get the whole bay to myself. I can
Oh,
set up whatever I want. I can rapid fire. I can draw from the hip. I can work reloads. You could do barrel rolls if you want,
yeah.
but you have the freedom to do whatever you want to do to train. So now when I'm going there, I'm actually spending time. Like I'll spend an hour just working like one shot
Right.
and just rep that out and just make it as smooth as possible. Okay, maybe now I'll double up, or now I'll do one reload, double up, and I'll just work tiny drills that just allow me to focus on getting my sights on, getting trigger control. Um, so I've been a lot more confident in that, which has carried over into my confidence carrying it out on the street, and especially now like being a dad. I mean, the thing's with me everywhere I go. I really
Absolutely.
don't leave home with it. My wife is now leaning more towards getting one, or at least starting that journey now that she has a son.
Yeah.
She's starting to kind of see. And again, we've had a lot of stuff happen. We're in the suburbs, but we're seeing a lot more incidents come up. And I'm like, I'm not one to push guns on anybody, but
Right.
I'm like, that's my son. I would like you to have something on you
Right.
to protect yourself and him if something happens. And she's been open to it.
Mhm.
But I also told her, if you're gonna do it, I'm taking you to Shivworks course, which you're gonna hate, but like that's my one condition. She's like, yeah, I know. So I'm like,
Absolutely.
that's just a good exposure. Like I'm gonna throw you in, and then I don't help. Like when I took my dad, I don't help you. Like you're not
Yeah,
gonna learn from me. I'm not gonna talk to you. You let everyone else take over and let them teach you, so that it's a different perspective than what I've been saying all these years.
I
But
think
no,
that's
it's been
lovely.
fun. I wish we had more freedoms here to buy
Sure.
stuff.
Yeah.
Though fingers crossed that the AR lift is getting lifted here in a
Gosh.
couple months is the rumor that I've been hearing,
Yeah.
which would be awesome because I would love to get involved in some of that training as well. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's been a fun journey, but it's like
Yeah.
anything else. Like I got to
Right.
put just as much time into that as fighting, as grappling, as talking, medical training. Like I have to put all of it together.
Absolutely. I'm excited to hear that it's continuing to evolve, and I think the fact that you did ECQC so early, as much as it's fun to joke about like how extreme almost it really is the most incredible class to take. It gives you the full context of everything from verbals to like full-blown scenarios. Of course, it shouldn't really be your
100%.
like first class when it comes to learning how to handle a
Mm-mm.
firearm, but maybe like
No,
maybe third. I would say after working with an instructor a few times, if you feel competent and extremely safe, right? You're pretty close to people on the line. But I love that you did it so early in your firearms journey. That's what I did too, and I feel like it's just set me up for such
made a huge
success. Oh my
difference.
gosh,
Huge
right? And it's
difference.
hard to
Yeah.
explain to
But again, like,
people.
but knowing, and maybe it's just because I have this relationship with Brian and Craig, and
Sure.
again, this isn't just me. Like, if anyone goes up to these guys and asks them questions, obviously not, do it during breaks.
Yes.
But if you ask them questions, like they will pull you aside and work with you on stuff. But I've gotten to the point with them where, like, especially Brian, because we're just big nerds together. He'll pull me aside and say, "Hey, screw your break, come over here. I want to show you something." And he'll work with me on my grip for the 10, 15 minutes, and then we jump right back into training.
Yes.
And then like whenever we do like the EWOs, like we don't take a lunch, we roll for an hour
Right.
and we pick each other's
Oh,
brains
you're
and we
those
just grapple
guys.
and we just use that as a oh
Nice.
yeah, we use that as a time to just kind of train and get some extra training in so that because again, I don't get to work with him all the time. And he's a,
Absolutely.
a very high caliber fighter. Um, but he picks my brain with striking. I pick his brain with grappling. We pick each other's brains with self defense stuff. So
Mhm.
it's good to have those relationships because they're there to help you get better. They're
Mhm.
not there to be like the I'm in charge and you just do what I say. Like they want you to ask questions. They want you to question what they're doing and say like I don't disagree with you, but I've never heard this before, so explain it. Tell me
Yes.
why you prefer this method over this method, and hear what they have to say. And that's not the end all be all, but they have living proof of why this works, and it's nice getting that exposure.
Absolutely. Oh, I love that so much. I love that it's a small world, this like combative space, like that 0 to
It
5
is.
foot range, the people who see the value in training that and seeking out, you know, good resources for it. So, really glad to hear that you're doing that and perpetuating it. And on the EWO note, gosh, let's talk about some other tools. So we went back into like striking, grappling. We moved into firearms. I'd love to get into like pepper spray and knives a little bit and look at the full picture with you. And I want to wrap today with some reaction videos. So,
Of course.
but let's talk about knives and blade work. Knives are one of those things that I started becoming passionate about because of the amount of women that were like, "I'm good. I've got a folder in my back pocket." And I'm like, "Cool, you've got a folding blade. Cool, 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 cool. Can you use it, right?" And this would come from, this is from Sofia with years of Krav, which like, listen,
I won't make it. No
listen,
comments.
right.
No comments.
Yes, okay, let's just move on. So it kind of encouraged me to look into, of course, Shipworks, just because I already respected them on the firearm side. I was like, oh my
Hmm.
gosh, they offer edge weapon overview. And blades are something I've been wanting to become more of a subject matter expert on, to be able to speak on these things. It's really hard to like,
Hmm.
I want to tell these ladies like, well, like you need to train, but then I have no resources to give them. I have no context to really give that in, other than, it's a tool, you need to train with it. And so I took EWO and I've fallen in love with the push dagger. This is the El Nino. I have it on screen today. If you're not watching this, by the way, the whole video is on YouTube if you want to jump over there. But um, this like blade worked really well for me because my like background in striking, years of Muay Thai, the like punch kind of technique is very native to me because of my background. So using
Hmm.
a push dagger, in that same orientation is very natural. Um, And so that's really just giving you a little context of where I'm at with my blade journey. I've only had one Ewo. I actually have a Bob. I'm pointing at him because he's in the corner of this room. I'm never alone. I have a Bob. I have the El Nino trainer. My downstairs neighbors hate me. But yeah, I absolutely work on striking with the blade. I use it for drawing with a hybrid carry bag, which I consider is not off shoulder, but strapped onto the body. So it's like it's hybrid, right? Um, when it comes to accessing your firearm from that bag and creating space, I worked with Scotty in an evolution and I was
Yep,
just hitting
I
him
saw
as
that.
hard as I could. And it like barely, and he was being so nice to me. It barely did anything. And I remember being like, dude, I need to carry a blade. And he was like, come to Ewo. And then I like traveled to Colorado and went to Ewo and it blew my mind. All of that to say, I have a very high appreciation for where blades kind of, belong and the fact that a lot of women are more likely to carry them than firearms. It's so interesting. So, with all that
Yeah.
said in that preface, because we haven't caught up on the blade side, what has your journey with blades been? And then let's freaking talk about
So
it.
I've actually, yeah, I actually kind of hyper focus on blade work for like 2 years, and it's all I
Nice.
trained. I barely did stuff like firearms was on the side, but I was like, I really
Okay.
want to work with blades.
Yeah.
So I took the knife control concepts course a couple
Mhm.
times. I had Aaron out to my gym once, and then
Mhm.
went out to him for it. I've worked with Ryan Hoover with his
Mhm.
knife class. And then I've taken, I don't even know how many EWO courses with Shivworks.
Yeah.
And then I also
Whoops.
did, what's the name of it? I feel like I have a book somewhere, but it's not down here. Red Threat Level Management, or Jerry's class.
Yes.
Um,
Wetzel? Jerry
uh,
Wetzel?
yes,
Nice,
yes, yep.
nice.
So
Mhm.
I just had
Red
him out last
Zone.
year. So
Yeah.
thank you,
I will link it in
Red
the show
Zone Threat
notes.
Management.
Yes.
Yes.
Threat
But
level
I've trained
midnight.
with those
Sorry.
four, those
Yeah.
four groups, completely different ideas
Mhm.
on knife work, yet they all overlap.
Okay.
And I think like Ryan Hoover's is very brutal and very destructive
I
and
believe it.
very focused. Aaron Genetti's is very hyper focused. Shivworks is a kind of like a magnified lens, like they're going to kind of pull you back a little bit more. Jerry kind of hyper focuses on a different aspect of things with knife work than anyone else had done. And so putting all that together, it was nice working the importance of like grip fighting, the importance of controlling your position, controlling the head posture, working strikes in there, accessing the blade, understanding that the blade is not meant to chase your attacker down, but just simply use it to get them off of you so that I can access a better tool. In this case, a firearm, or use it to just simply get away. And so hearing that you have all these instructors and programs that have completely different ways of getting to the same point, and they all have the over, like, there wasn't anything that one person said that I'd be like, Ryan disagrees with that. Like, they all agree on the same points, but they present it differently.
Right.
And so I spent a lot of time working with that, um, just training those different techniques, drills, working that stuff. And a lot of that carries over to firearms too. Like all the hand fighting, all the positions, all the points that you need to control in a close and quarter altercation. It doesn't matter if it's a firearm or a blade, it's the same principle. But blades are scary, and they, it's not like a firearm, which is a machine. You can stop the firearm from working by simply grabbing the firearm. You can't do that with a blade. Like, that thing's still actively cutting and working, and so it takes a little bit more thinking to understand how I have to control a blade, and it's faster acting than a firearm in the sense of, like, it may come out and you take a few shots to the ribs thinking you're getting punched before you
Mm.
realize that a blade's in picture. So it's a little bit trickier when you're in those close quarters, which is why I spent a lot more time working on them. I do carry the push dagger. The clinch dagger is probably my go-to, and that's just because I'm a grappler by heart. So to me, that works a little bit better. I have an out the front one that I have from Variant One that I like because I open a lot of boxes. So most of the
Nice.
days, like when I'm just going to the office, like out the front is usually what I carry. Obviously I'll have my firearm on me, but I typically don't carry one of those blades unless I'm like going out.
Okay.
If I'm going out to town, if I'm going to Chicago, something like that.
Yeah.
But when I'm typically just driving to and from work, like, I still have a blade on me. I just don't typically carry one of those every single time. I may
Mhm.
interchange them, but depends on what I'm wearing, what I'm doing that day, where we're going. I also have some of the G10 blades, in case I need to go to
Yes.
like a concert or something, which I've gotten into. And so I've got some reviews coming up on those here soon. But I mean, like, those are great
Incredible.
options. So I've definitely spent a lot of time working on those. But like you said, like, I find more women are more comfortable carrying pocket knives than that stuff. So
Yeah.
it's good to kind of say, like, hey,
Yes.
this is a good beginner blade. This is a good option, but you still need to go out and train. And as I
Absolutely.
always tell people, learn to fight first. Even with pepper spray, learn
Yes.
to fight first.
I
Have a
completely
backup plan.
agree. I completely agree. And I think
So,
something that's cool about classes like EWO and I've knife control concepts was my first after Krav Maga, after I retired my years of Krav. Knife control concepts was a really great introduction into that. I totally agree. EWO gives you this like kind of macro scale look. I really like that. And I think if anything, if you take that class, you do learn like, I need to know a little bit more, because there's so much of a wrestling component and
mhm.
the like power behind striking. That's what you get with the blade. And if you've never like used your body like that, if you've never kind of like pivoted and like put your hips into it even, um I feel like you'll get a sense of that in that class and you'll kind of wonder like, oof, what could I do closer to home, like a striking class?
Well, and it's funny. I point, and again, I make a effort to point this out every single ShivWorks class I do because we do the big debrief at the end.
Hmm.
But like the EC, I'm grateful. The two classes that we've ran, actually, the first ShivWorks class I ran at my gym, we had 28 people. I had 16 black belts on the mat.
Oh my goodness.
Like we had an absurd amount of black belts, and then everybody else was like law enforcement. Like we had the
Nice.
the amount of talent in that room was
Oh
absurd.
my
And then the
goodness.
ShivWorks that we ran this year, like the highest was a purple belt.
Right.
Like, and there was like maybe 3 people that trained,
Okay.
and that was
Okay.
it.
Interesting.
And then when I did the ECQC course, it was like the same thing. I was the only fighter in the entire group.
Yeah.
Everybody else was like, "Oh, I've dabbled with this," or "I'm a white belt."
Nice.
Um, but they were phenomenal shooters, and like everyone
Interesting.
looked like they threw a golf ball through their target,
Yeah.
and then my shit is like, just I'm throwing sprinkles on my guy. Like we were still learning, right?
Of course. Of
Um,
course.
but that didn't matter when we started doing the drilling
Right.
and we started going hands on. And like, if I'm a better grappler, like nobody could get their firearm out. And
Right.
I made an effort to point that out to people like, listen, you all are a lot better at firearms than I am, but I'm a better fighter.
Right.
And if I can stop your grips or control your grips, your firearm doesn't matter at that point. Like
Yes.
none of that matters if you can't even get to it to begin with, because
Yes.
that's what everyone always assumes. And so I've known multiple people from that class that have now been actively training in jiu-jitsu and striking since that course because they, like you said,
Mm.
realize like, holy crap, I should probably start wrestling or striking or doing something because I realize how much that's hindering my ability to access this in that 0 to 5 foot range, which is where majority of your altercations are going to take place.
Absolutely. Yes.
So it's good exposure, but that's why I'm constantly like, just go train, like
Yes.
carry something, but go train. If you're
Yes.
willing to carry a firearm, you can take a striking class.
Absolutely. And if you're listening to this and you're thinking, well, I'm a great shot, I'm one of those guys on the line that would have had a, golf ball size hole in my target. More power to you. There are self-defense
Yeah, that's
scenarios
great.
where people have made like 20 to 40-yard shots in defensive manners, like the guy in the mall.
Yeah,
And that's very,
I was just gonna say,
it
yeah,
very much applies
awesome.
there. Absolutely. We're talking about the fight that you're so close that you could reach out, both of the people could reach out their hands and touch each other. At that
Which
point,
is which is
right.
most altercations.
Absolutely. And gosh, like this is just like as I always joke like I'll say the 0 to 5 foot range it's not my specialty. It's just like I'm the most interested in learning it because I know it's the most applicable and that's why I got into self-defense in the first place.
Mhm.
I was put in situations as a kid where it was close quarters and I felt incredibly powerless and I remember being like, cool, never again. Like I'm gonna move through my entire life and find ways to never feel like that again. And I turned it into a career somehow, so that's cool. But yeah, that's if you're listening to this is not to say that you should not train accuracy. I'm a USPSA shooter. I just made B class, by the way. I'm not trying to brag, but this is like finally,
Good for you.
Jesus. It's almost embarrassing to be like, it's almost like being in jiu-jitsu for 6 years and being like, I just got my blue belt.
I just got my stripe.
That's exactly what it feels like. And so, as someone who values firearms training beyond the capacity of the 0 to 5 foot range, I feel like I can speak to this. And I very much, yeah, I love what you said. I love the way you said it. That's so good. Ah, yeah. What is it about blades with women? What is that? Why is that the
I don't
case?
know.
I
Don't
carried
know.
one as okay,
The other thing is, like, I'll get a lot of people that carry pepper spray, but they've never shot it before
dude, right? And
or practiced with it. Actually, I got a funny
please,
story,
God,
and I'll
let's
I'll throw
let's
my
hit
mom
it.
under the bus for
Oh
this.
no.
So I gave my mom pepper spray,
Okay.
and she comes back to me. Honestly, I think she came back to me on like the first day of the ShivWorks course, and
Yeah.
it was like weeks later. She goes, you'll be so proud of me, because she knew we were taking the course, and like she wanted to ask questions about pepper spray and stuff. She goes, I tested the pepper spray. I said, oh, good. I said, how was it? She goes, it's a lot different than I thought. I said, okay, good. She goes, yeah, so it was great spraying. And I said, wait a minute. I said, did you test like the pepper spray, or did you test a test pepper spray? She goes, no, my pepper spray. I
Oh.
said, well, I have to get you a new one now. She goes, well,
Oh.
why? And I said, well, those things only last like 10
That's so funny,
seconds.
right,
And
right.
I said, you just dumped. I said, I don't know how much you sprayed, but you probably just dumped like most of the
She
container.
sounds
I
like a
said, they come
badass,
with
David.
like, oh yeah. And I was like, I'm like, props to you. And she was like, really? I said, yeah. I'm like, I'll give you a water one so you can like practice. I'm like, props to you, because most people won't even. And she was like, it was so cool. Like it hit the tree and I could see the spray, and like she was so happy about it. And I was like, I don't mean to hate on your parade right now, but
Right.
I was
Hate
like,
on
this
your
practice
parade.
spray is for a reason. Because I was
Yes.
like, I'll get you another pepper spray now. But I'm like, good for you for actually getting out there and like seeing what it looks like, because it's not what people. I think people think it's like a super soaker and it goes, and I'm like, it's not.
Right.
It's kind of underwhelming,
Sure. Oh, yeah.
in my opinion.
Especially the
When I
more
spray it, I'm like, yeah, I'm like, it's very underwhelming. It still packs a sucker punch, but it is
yes.
it is underwhelming. I'm like, yeah. I'm
Yeah.
like, that's what they are though, but they work. So
Yeah.
but yeah, that was a fun story. I'm
Ugh.
like, more people need to do that. But I get it all the time.
Yeah.
Of like, yeah, we have this, or like, yes, we carry pocket knives. I'm like, have you ever like practiced taking it out? Well, no.
Right.
I'm like, just
Right.
it's like it's like buying a gun and never shooting it
Yes.
and just carrying it around.
Yes. And this isn't like, gosh, I feel like something I'm just gonna put it out here. This is my podcast. I can say anything. Yeah, I always forget that. I have like
Say
free
what you
will
want.
here.
Say what you want.
One of my
No, say what you
least
want. Let the
favorite,
haters hate.
right? One of my least favorite things I see on social is people like just shaming people who don't train. I do think there's an aspect of like they don't know what they don't know, right? Dunning-Kruger and all that.
Right.
And um I've tried to do the opposite. It's so easy to make a piece of content and just be like, "Oh, you've never touched your firearm? How stupid of you." Like how easy it is to make that piece of content and how much more challenging it is to have to articulate why someone should train and what resources are out there. And that's why this podcast got started. So this is not to like shame anyone. It's baffling as people that have you way more than me, but as people that have put themselves in situations in like a freaking Thunderdome, which is what you
Mhm.
know Shivworks calls that little dome they form around you for the evolutions. As someone
Ah,
who's
zero.
been in that a few
Big
times, like
sound. Five,
you want everyone you love to do
one,
it. You want
one.
them to feel that like intensity before there's actual consequences of a true like there are consequences in the
Yeah.
Thunderdome, but everything it's non-lethal. And so we're saying this to bring
But you
exposure.
got you gotta have you gotta have that exposure, and it's not comfortable. I mean, like I love the Thunderdome. I thrive in it. Like I have a
I
great
bet
time
you
because it's like,
do.
all right, cool. We're fighting. Like there's definitely things I've had to work on. But teaching a lot of that stuff and teaching it my way has helped me get better at it when I do it. Um, but like I'm training with these, you know, high caliber fighters
Yeah.
that I have no place being in the ring with them, but that's all they want to do. Like they're trying to do it professionally. So as long as
Right.
I can hang with them and I can still stand, then
Mhm.
I've done like in my head, I'm like, all right, I'm good for the average dude on the street. Um, but I love it. Like
Yeah.
I love being, even like our guys now that are getting ready for fighting. Um, when we switch from boxing gloves to the MMA gloves, like
Mhm.
things start slipping through the cracks a lot more than you expect
Right.
because you don't have a big glove anymore. And so like when you get caught and you get rocked, like no one's stopping you because you still got time left in the round.
Right.
So it's like I gotta just kind of pick my head back up and carry on through, and then I get 30 seconds to catch my thoughts and breath after that, and then I'm right back in there.
Right.
So it's definitely just getting that exposure over and over and over, and it never gets comfortable.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Like you'll get comfortable one day, and then the next day you have a complete meltdown.
That's
And
so nice
that's
to
just
hear
like the
from
beauty
you.
of it.
I'm gonna be real with you. That's so nice to hear. I kind of thought, okay, I'm not shitting on women. This is not a shit on women. I just like, I don't know. Women's hormonal cycles fluctuate 4 times a month. Okay. Men's every day, 24-hour clock. We're on different clocks. And some days jujitsu is just so much harder than others. Like the specific training rounds, like the ones where you feel like
Mhm.
you don't get to catch your breath. I just like I'll have days where I'm like, yeah, I'm freaking on top of this. I got this. And I leave and I'm like, I'm a big dog, I'm just kidding. But like other days I leave and I
But
want to
it's
cry.
It's funny too though, because it depends on like where your lane is. Like
Yeah.
when I go back to my Thai gym, I went and I sparred with them one day, and I don't think I landed a single punch. I think I was just a punching bag for every single person. But all they do is Thai boxing. Like that's it. They're all Thai
Right.
fighters. They don't do anything else. And I went up to one of the dudes he's coached me privately with some striking. I've worked with him on grappling. And I said, let me ask you something. I said, is this what it feels like when you grapple me? He goes, 100%.
'Kay.
He goes, "When I grapple you," he's like, you ragdoll me every which way." And
Yeah.
he goes, "So yeah, I return the favor." Now, the funny thing is if we do MMA rounds, you'll see them drastically pull back because now they know grappling's in the picture. And because that's not their
Interesting.
strong suit, they now have to be smarter because like he could catch a kick, he could catch a punch, he could shift levels, he could take us down, he could tie up with us. So
Right.
like it changes things when they're like, "Hey, we're only throwing punches here. You can't hold me."
Right.
So like when they do that, it's like you just got to know what your lane is. So it's
Yeah.
good for me to go strike with those guys because as much as I love striking and I've technically been striking longer than I've grappled, it's still like not. I'm more comfortable grappling higher caliber grapplers than I am striking high caliber strikers
Yeah.
because I can position myself like if a high level grappler puts me in a bad spot, I can manage it enough to where I can catch my breath, I can collect my thoughts. But when you go against high caliber strikers, they don't let you breathe, and I
Mhm.
can't just be like, "Hey, time out for a second." It's
Mhm.
like you're just getting punched in the face. So to
But
me,
you can't do that?
like striking is always yeah, striking is always uncomfortable. But that's why we train, and
Yes.
like that's what people need to understand is the more you train, the more comfortable you get overall, but you're always going to be chasing that comfort level. You're never going to get to a point where like I can handle every situation
Right.
because you may have a bad day. It might be that time of the month for you ladies. You might be emotional.
Dude,
Like
for
there's
real.
all these different factors that come into play that's just like, hey, I'm not in my headspace today and I'm just gonna try and survive. And
Yeah.
but that's what training is for.
Absolutely. I actually had a talk with one of the biggest guys at the gym. He's a one-stripe white belt, but just incredible practitioner. Like he's very technical. You can tell he almost
That's
even like
surprising from a
overthinks.
white belt.
Dude, right? I'm super impressed by him. And yeah, we had a talk one day and he was just like, I just feel like I suck. And I was like, yeah, dude. Like that's but we keep the difference is we can feel like that and then keep coming back. Like, it doesn't change the outcome, we take the emotion out of it. But yeah, I have days I've walked out of the gym and just started crying. Not my day. Like, just, already been
It
like
happens.
yeah, it does. So I love hearing this from you. I'd actually love to pivot back. I don't wanna leave the pepper spray conversation, undone. Obviously, you're from a line of badasses with your mom here, so,
Badass.
and your dad doing
Uh,
ECQC. So
uh,
I
so
through
I
everything you've said,
every
you value
uh
pepper spray, and I
yeah,
think
and I
anyone listening or,
equal
like, seeing your page, seeing what you do, might even be surprised by
my
that notion because
badass
pepper spray is, like it is a
face
non-lethal, it's not
kickable
seen as scary as a
drop
firearm here, so, like, when it comes to your implementation of pepper spray, where does it fall in your, kind of just, like, toolkit of everything from striking to a firearm?
I mean, it is, and I think it's pretty universal with a lot of instructors.
Mhm.
It would probably be my first line of defense.
Okay.
Because it sucks. Like I've been pepper sprayed, it's miserable.
Okay.
Um, but it's like what's the saying? It's the best thing between like a harsh word and a firearm.
Yeah. Chuck
Like
Agger.
not everything needs to get to that point. You can carry it just about anywhere.
Right?
It's easy to carry, it's easy to use, it doesn't take much. And even if it is a situation where like I know things might need to escalate, if I'm able to like put that on somebody first to buy me some time or
Yeah.
get some distance or whatever I need to do, then so be it. But I think the problem is people are willing to just jump up the spectrum
Yeah.
as quickly as possible because like I have this, I've been training for years, this is my moment. And it's like, well, if I don't need to go that far, then I'm not going to. And even
Mm.
Aaron Janetti said it really well, and it's always stuck with me. It's like people who are skilled at violence get to choose violence. People that are not skilled at violence resort to violence.
Yeah.
And so, like, he was meaning that because we are so highly trained in just how to hurt people, that is our last resort, but we're confident in all our other skills because we have that as a backup plan. So now I'm forced to be like, hey, I can talk to you, or I can go with less lethal
Mm.
options because I have a backup plan if all that fails rather than having to jump to that conclusion. I have that privilege to pick pepper spray first compared to drawing a firearm first because I understand that this situation um, could be handled in a safer manner. Like, sure, maybe it does justify pulling out a firearm, but it could also justify just pepper spray. It could be both.
Yes.
And if I can get away with pepper spray, then, w- legality, like what's going to happen to me at that point? I sprayed you in the face with pepper,
Right.
compared to I put holes in you.
Right.
So there's definitely a difference in how that's handled, but it's a privilege because you understand violence. I think pepper spray is something that every single person should carry. I think it's an easy option for people to carry that aren't comfortable carrying anything else. But like anything, you still have to train with it. And you also still, which is why I encourage people, you still need to be prepared for if it fails. I mean, like when I got
Yes.
pepper sprayed, it was like 30 seconds before it fully kicked in. Like I was still talking, having conversations, and
Interesting.
then all of a sudden
Do
it just hit a wall.
you mind sharing what
Like I was
unit
coughing and stuff.
it was?
It was we were doing it was Byrna's pepper launcher. So I got hit with the
Ooh.
pepper balls.
Oh,
And it took
shit.
about 30, 40 seconds for those to fully kick in. So like I was having conversations, I was talking to people, like I was coughing and I could feel it, and
Yeah.
then all of a sudden it hit, and like my eyes shut,
Huh.
mouth shut, like everything just hit. But it was like I had enough to where I probably could have pushed through and put some damage on
Yeah.
somebody for a minute, and then that took over.
Interesting.
But it's not, and so we're gonna do some more tests to test just how strong pepper spray can be.
I'm so excited.
That's our plan this summer. But I think people just need to realize like everything could fail,
Yeah.
and like if it's windy, if it's whatever, like
Yeah.
anything could fail. You got to have a backup plan, and that backup plan is fighting. That's
Yeah.
really what it comes down to.
Are you if you already have this idea, ignore me obviously, but are you gonna, like, get pepper sprayed and then try to fight through it?
The one that we're testing,
Mhm.
that is one that we've talked about.
Okay.
I've got a bunch of different launchers here, so we want to test just how. The one question we got is like how effective is the actual stopping power of the
Yes.
launchers.
Nice, nice. Yeah.
Because like I grew up paintballing, like I played professional for a while. I can take the rubber rounds because it feels the same to me as a paintball.
Yeah.
Like hurts a little bit more. Obviously, if I get hit in the face or the throat, that sucks. But I could push through you shooting me with the rubber rounds.
Right.
Like my concern with the pepper rounds is when you hit me, if I'm in a full blown sprint, like that powder is going to go past me. I want to
Interesting.
know how much of it I'm actually going to take compared to how much of it goes past me. And so we kind of want to test to see if someone's charging you and you just pepper them in the chest
Yeah.
and let that kind of come up, how fast will that kick in? And then, yeah, we might kind of hose some people down and spray and then try just fighting and just seeing how long can you fight while pepper sprayed? Like, could you really push through if you had to and stuff? So I
Gosh,
want to
yeah.
test it to kind of show people like it sucks, but like it goes away.
Yeah.
So if it has to
Obviously.
suck for an hour,
Yeah.
we'll let it suck for an hour and we'll go from there. So
I'm so excited for this video. I cannot even tell
so
you.
yeah, when it happens, I couldn't tell you. That's just one that's like I can't plan it out too
Sure.
much. We kind of just have to wing it because if I plan it out, we're never gonna do it. If I'm just
Dude,
like, hey, we're filming this today
yes.
and we'll figure it out on the go, they're
Yes.
like, all right, cool. And I got people that
Absolutely.
want to get shot. We got yards to do it in, so it's
Yeah.
like we just have to commit. But
Absolutely.
either way, pepper spray, people carry it. Again, like I know you work with Palm, I work with Saber. Both are great companies. Both
Right.
have been around for a while. Like if there's two pepper spray brands that I hear about almost daily from people, it's one of those two.
Absolutely.
So you really can't go wrong with either one.
Absolutely. Saber has more accessibility for sure. Like I see them in
They
like
have a ton of
academies and
options.
Walmart and
Yeah,
yeah, they have a ton of options for sure. I like Palm. I like how it's kind of like who said it? It's like the iPhone of the pepper spray.
yeah.
Like it's so just like what's the
It
word?
looks nice.
Yeah, it looks nice. It's
It's nice
small,
looking. It fits nicely.
concealable.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's just
yeah.
great. And then you have the
Like
flip top
it's just simple
safety.
and it works.
Yes, absolutely. So like it's very just personal preference, but there are only a few videos out there where people have truly tested the stopping power of those pepper sprays. So I'm excited to see what you come up
Yeah.
with. I'm so excited. That's going to be great. Very, very cool. When specifically within a fight, and we can even talk about this in a metric of like the range from say your attacker to you, when would you implement striking compared to pepper spray?
Um, I mean, if I managed to let somebody get too close and things start, I would probably strike first and then
Okay.
resort to pepper spray.
Okay.
If it's at a distance and like again, if there's a situation where I could punch you, it's the same situation that I could pepper spray you.
Okay.
And I would prefer to pepper spray you because I also know the dangers of getting punched. I know
That's
how quickly things
interesting.
can go wrong with getting punched.
Yeah.
But again, I fight. I know what it feels like.
Yeah.
I know how quickly like one of my fighters the other day, I just clipped her. Barely any pressure and we dropped her.
Mm.
And she was
Yeah.
seeing stars. She's like things went black for a few seconds. Like
Yeah.
she felt like she got knocked out while standing. And when we went back and looked at the footage, like we barely made contact, but it was like
Interesting.
just
In the right
perfect
spot.
placement.
Yeah.
And yeah. And so it's
Sheesh.
like, and that's in a safe environment with, 16-ounce gloves on. If that was bare
Yeah.
knuckles, it'd be a different story.
Gosh.
So it's
Yeah.
like I understand the dangers of it. So it's like, why do I want it? Like, I'm confident in my ability to fight. I don't want to strike. I would try not to strike in a fight.
Yeah.
I probably would strike into grappling because, again, less risk. Um, but if I can avoid all of that with pepper spray,
Yeah.
That's always gonna be the better option.
Totally fair. I remember in an evolution one time, this guy, you could tell he just really wanted to use the pepper spray. He brought his palm trainer to the evolution. He was like ready to use it. And I was like, if that guy pepper sprays me, I'm gonna just get pissed off and like sprint at him and take him down. And I did. And it was actually like it was a good lesson. It's also one of my biggest fears. Like pepper spray just pissing someone off because it doesn't either they have glasses on, they maybe
Well,
have
and that's
like
why I tell people, like, have like, don't just assume, like, I could spray you and
yes,
walk away. Like, I
right.
might have to punch you at that point, but,
Absolutely.
like,
Yes.
I would at least like that as the option because then I can then declare, like, people also need to understand that you have to look at it from the legality perspective. And
Yes.
if when everyone's filming, if they see me pepper spray you and then continuously say, like, back off, get away from me, dude, like, do not come any closer, and then I punch you,
Mhm.
people gonna say, like, hey, he pepper sprayed him.
Mhm.
Let's look at what happened even before the pepper spray came out. He pepper sprays him. He's still just trying to give him verbal commands, and then he resorted to fighting.
Yeah.
But you did all these steps to try to avoid that. That looks good from a legal perspective, and
Yes.
people do need to consider that as well. I have to look good on camera, because it most likely will be on camera.
Absolutely. Yes. And Lena and I have actually had, I think I've only mentioned this on one other episode, but we've had some aggressive dogs come up too during our half marathon training. We're doing another stint of half marathon training, but our last one, we had a pit bull running up to us, and my instinct was to run away. And she was like, no, we have to face it. So she like turns around and gets really big. And I'm like going for my pepper spray. This was before I staged it properly, and my bag staging is so important. And I
Mhm.
talk about it all the time. So this is like it's really ironic that I just didn't stage it well. I actually ended up pulling out my inhaler. That was really cool. She was like,
Never mind. Hold on.
right? She was like, "What were you gonna do? Give it, if the dog had an asthma
Give him
attack?"
some
And I was like,
oxygen.
"Yeah, exactly." So, I now run with my MK3 unit with Palm, which is like their higher capacity, higher
Yeah,
volume.
so the bigger one.
Yes, the bigger one, and also the spray is a lot more aggressive. So, I have been running with that staged on the opposite side of where my pull tab is for my firearm, so that if I need to grab it, it's super accessible. But yeah, I'm so glad we talked about this because I think of all people, you're a very good example of someone who, like, one would just assume that your striking would be firsthand. So for you to be like, no, I'm actually like pepper sprays first line, mixed with striking depending on distance, like this is such good nuance to go into. So thanks for sharing that. It's freaking awesome.
Of
That's
course,
very
of course.
exciting. All right. So we are going to end part one here, but don't go yet. I have got some questions for David. I want you all to hear the answers to. And then we're going to have a part two where we do some reactions to some videos. I felt like it was important to have just like a part two. This was technically part two from season one, episode two. See what you've been
So
up
part
to.
part two, section B.
Yeah,
Part
exactly.
two, section B now. Yeah.
Exactly. Part two, section B will be next, where we go over some reactions to videos online. That's David's specialty. He explained to me before we jumped on the recording that that was kind of a way for you to connect to the audience a little bit more and be like, no, this stuff actually
Part of
happens
it,
in person.
to be blunt, it was to shut up the haters. It was to
Dude,
shut up everyone that was like, "This
okay,
is such a
cool.
stupid technique," or "This won't work," and I'm like, "Here you
I didn't
go.
want to
The
say that
internet
for
records
you.
everything. Here you go. Yeah,
Yes.
here you go."
Yes.
I mean, it's the firsthand look at like what violent attacks look like,
Yes.
and they're stupid. Like most of the time, it's like, who would do that if this untrained people will? I'm like, yes, they
Right.
will.
Yes. Untrained
So
people are scary. Just if you need a reminder of that, just go to a gym and roll with a white belt. Like, just, you know what I mean?
you
Like,
will learn very quickly how scary it is.
it's terrifying.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, what are some of your goals this year when it comes to training? Anything from, gosh, just blades to firearms to striking?
Not honestly, I had like goals in mind, and then I've kind of washed all them. Like this year, I kind of want to just focus on growing the gym and growing the platform a bit more, and that's kind of where I'm
Fantastic.
focused on right now. Like I'm not really traveling to teach. I keep kind of pushing it off right now. It's not really the time to travel and teach. Like I said, I might do the combative summit. I got to see if scheduling works out.
Yeah.
So if I can, like I'll be there this year teaching it, which would be an awesome opportunity. And if not, I already told them I'll be there next year. So
Yeah.
that for sure will happen at some point. Other than that. Um, I've got good connections with all the guys, so if they have a seminar and I'm available, I can show up and,
Yeah.
jump in, help out, train a little bit, and
Yeah.
and so I kind of just want to train wherever I can, and but yeah, I think this year the overall goal right now is just kind of focused on again, this move wasn't planned until this year,
Yeah.
so we kind of scrambled to make it happen. So now the goal is like let's just make this work and let's just grow even bigger, and then like we said, primarily the YouTube channel just kind of buckle down on that a little bit more. But no,
Yes.
other than that, just continue being a nerd, training, studying, and just having fun with it.
Absolutely. And I will have your social media, including YouTube, linked in the show notes, which are the notes below the podcast. If you see kind of that text below the podcast, click show more, and the links will be there. So if you're listening and want to follow David, you absolutely should, by the way. Our collab post will be there too. And then, yeah, what would you like to leave the listeners with? I've continued that. I think we did that in 2023.
Yeah, go train. That's been my
Beautiful.
message with everything now is just go out there and train. People learn how to swim so they don't drown. People wear seatbelts for car crashes. Like this is the answer that everyone always asks. Like, what do I need to do to protect myself? It's been there for years. So you just have to go train.
Yeah.
And as I always tell people, like reach out if you need help finding a gym, shoot me a message. I'll do my best to look up it in your area, recommend gyms, or if I know somebody in the area, I'll recommend you to them. But
Right.
you kind of learn what to look for in gyms, and I know from somebody that's new that can be intimidating. So reach out. If I can help you find a spot to train, then so be it.
Absolutely. Wonderful. Well, thank you, David. I look forward to part
Absolutely.
2B. And yeah,
Part 2B.
thanks for coming on, listeners.
So
Stay safe.
absolutely. It was awesome.
Beautiful. All right, guys, stay safe and stay vigilant.